Just because it's winter or just because it isn't always glorious sunshine, it doesn't mean you need to pack up all your fun on two wheels. In fact, you can actually have just as much or even more fun if you go and get a bit dirty and get into the world of greenlaning and off-roading. That's exactly what we're doing, and this video is going to help you get started. Firstly, let's start with the bike. You don't need to break the bank to have fun. If you've got some sort of KTM adventure bike, if you've got a GS, you can go and have fun on anything. Or you can get something like this, which is a purpose-built enduro bike. Now, this is a GASGAS EC300 two-stroke, but you don't have to go that crazy. You can get second-hand machines. You can get something that's a little bit softer, like the CRFLs or the KLXs, for anything above £2 now. So it really doesn't have to be too expensive. And once you've got the bike, that means you're pretty much halfway there. And once you've got the bike, there are a few other things to take into account as well. So you want to make sure if you're buying a second-hand bike, you're not getting a rotter. You want to know it's been looked after, it's been serviced, it's been cleaned, and also you want to make sure that you're insured too, because these are roads you're riding on technically. So you need to be insured, you need to be legal, and most of all, you want a bike that's going to look after you. Now you've got your bike, you need to invest in some kit. Now, a lot of people can go down the textile route. I personally opt for light motocross gear, only because you will get really hot. Even on a cold day, it is a lot more strenuous than it looks wrestling one of these around on some lanes. Something like this is a light jacket, you can remove the sleeves. The motocross gear is nice, it keeps you safe. I'd wear some light armour underneath and also get some nice thick boots because you want to look after your ankles. In the winter months, I'd also recommend layering up on some waterproofs, because if you go through a big, muddy, dirty puddle first time out, you're going to be wet and soggy all day long, and that is no fun for anyone. So light, waterproof, and make sure you sort of look at the weather and gauge what you want to wear, because you don't want to be sweating one out after half hour either. Another thing to get is a proper helmet. You can get an adventure helmet, you can get something with a peak, something that's going to be comfortable, something that's going to give you a lot of air, but something that's going to keep you safe, and also a set of goggles too. Although don't use any tear-offs, just because it'll make a mess wherever you go, and that's just not cool. Another thing I recommend as well is take a little backpack. You might be out for hours and hours on end. You want to plan your fuel stops, because although they don't drink a lot of fuel, they don't have massive fuel tanks, and it can really sneak up on you. And make sure you've got some water on you, make sure you've got some liquids, make sure you've got some sugar and some food. You will be burning so many calories, you can get tired easily, and that little bit of sugar can just really help you if you're starting to lose your concentration. Now you've got your bike and all your kit, where do you ride? Well, it's a bit of a jigsaw finding it, but there is over 6,000 miles of usable roads in England and Wales alone. It's quite easy finding standard single lanes, but for a full day out, you really have to plan ahead. What you're looking for is boats, so that's byways open to all traffic, and unclassified roads. So these are all legal roads, but usually they aren't tarmacked. They're very quiet, they're single track, they can be really rutty, really muddy, and that is where you'll find your adventure. Now, how you find this, you can either look on your county website, you can look at OS Maps, or you can use apps like View Ranger as well, so they have maps and routes built in that people have used, people have rated. That's really good. But another thing I'd recommend is joining a local group of enduro riders. If you go on social media, there is loads of groups, and on top of that, I'd highly recommend joining the Trail Riders Fellowship as well. They'll give you tips and hints on your riding, where to ride, bike maintenance, all of that, and most of all, they will show you exactly where you can ride and exactly where you can't. On the subject of that, it's also worth going out with a few mates. I wouldn't recommend going out on your own. You don't know what might happen. You might turn down somewhere, you might hit a bump, you might get knocked off, you might fall over. You know, anything can happen. It's always worth traveling with a mate. Not only is it way more fun if you're sharing the experience, but it's also a lot safer as well. So if you're going out, don't go out alone. So now you've got your mate, you've got your bike, you've got your gear, you know exactly where you're going. Now is to the riding. Now, the first thing to remember is you are not on private land and you're not on a motocross track. You need to really be considerate of everyone else. There's a lot of stigma surrounding off-roaders and off-road riding. We don't need to add to that. So be mindful that there's going to be horses, cyclists, dog walkers. There's going to be the lot. So as long as you're nice, as long as you're friendly, people usually are really nice and really helpful. And you never know, you might need their help a bit down the lane if you break down or something. So always be really considerate. When you're getting going, always look as far ahead as possible. If you're looking down at your mudguard and what's just in front of you, you might miss something really big coming up. So look ahead, make sure you know exactly what you're aiming for, pick your ruts properly, and if you're new to it, try standing up too. Although it might seem a bit alien at first, it will really help with your bike control. Make sure you're staying loose. If you're just starting out, I probably wouldn't recommend going out for a full day, as you'll get pretty tired pretty quickly. Even if you're just doing a couple of hours of intense stuff, you really will feel it in your arms and your legs and your back. Take it by baby steps, just build up to it. And I'd highly recommend getting some off-road instruction too, because it really will make a massive difference to your confidence. So that's it, you've been out, you've found your route, you've had a mega ride. What do you do after? Well, it doesn't just stop here. With these bikes, they are pretty bulletproof, but you really do need to take care of them. I'd highly recommend either using a jet wash, pressure washer, or getting your own one and give it a really, really deep clean. Make sure everything is crystal clear, because otherwise it will get all horrible and muddy, and it really will deteriorate the bike quite quickly. Make sure you do the same with your kit, and also make sure you keep on top of things. So little things like this is a 2-stroke, make sure you've got the right amount of oil in there. Make sure you're not leaving the battery, if it's electric start, make sure you're not just leaving the battery to die every couple of weeks. Make sure your tyre pressures are good, make sure your brake pads have got loads of meat in them. Another thing that is an absolute must with these bikes, after cleaning, make sure you lube that chain. You really need to do that, and also be cleaning out that air filter, because it will get mucky, it will get horrible, and you'll run into a whole host of problems. So they're 2 things that you really need to do. All these little things will just add to the life of the bike and make riding that much more enjoyable as well. If you're not opting for a GS, if you're not opting for an older, softer enduro bike, if you want something a bit more potent, a bit more modern, something like this, these bikes are so capable now that you don't need to be limited to just green lanes. Like, sure, you'll be using it on the road in between, but I would highly recommend doing an enduro day, take it to private land, really get to grips with it with absolutely no boundaries. And if you're feeling confident at that, I'd also recommend at least a day on either a motocross training school or a motocross track too. These bikes are more than capable of sucking it up, and being able to dial yourself in on a circuit where there's only a certain amount of corners can really mean you can build on your riding abilities. You can start hitting the jumps a bit higher, you can start using the ruts, and you really can get a better feel for it. With an off-road bike, the sky's the limit. Whether it's raining and horrible and you want to go out for a spin, if it's sunny and beautiful and you want to just go out and spend the day, I really would recommend getting one. I would recommend trying it. There's loads of schools, there's loads of places you can actually rent bikes, there's KTM off-road ventures, you've got BMW off-road skills, there's a whole host of places all over the UK. If you haven't tried it, go and do it. You'll be hooked forever.